This is the 2021 TVS Apache RTR 204V. Of course, it debuted last year, and that blue color might make you think that this is an all-new motorcycle, though it isn't. It continues with the styling that we saw on the BS6 edition, which means it looks quite aggressive. It gets those angry headlights, and these are the all-LED type, so they light up the road much better than before. And because of their stacked arrangement, they also light up the corners quite nicely in case you're riding in the mountain roads at night. And this new blue shade, well, it's derived from the Apaches that race in the National Racing Championships. But then again, this is a TVS, so there is more track-derived equipment on this bike than just a paint job. Let's take a closer look.
For starters, the engine puts out a tiny bit more power and torque than last year's model. But more than this unnoticeable change in the output, it is the riding modes that could catch your fancy: rain, urban and sport. Selectable on the fly, albeit with a closed throttle, via a mode selector switch on the handlebar.
There's no ride-by-wire, so these modes essentially change the throttle map and the fueling. Now, in rain mode or in urban mode, it dials down the maximum power and the torque, and it also revs a little lower, so that way it will not overwhelm the rider when you're riding in a wet condition or even in city traffic. But in sport mode, the engine revs more freely and it runs more freely, and that change is immediately noticeable.
The rain and urban modes will hit the rev limiter around the 8000 RPM mark. In fact, you will seldom have to rev that high in the cityscapes, as the Apache makes brisk progress at commuting speeds, and you will often find yourself short shifting. It is only on the highway that you will want the engine to rev higher, and dialing in the sport mode will let it go all the way up to 9000 RPM, and you will have all of the 21 ponies at your disposal.
Now, the difference in these riding modes is only noticeable when you're squeezing out the maximum possible performance out of this machine, not so much at lower speeds. Even the fuel economy gains in these various modes is very marginal. Now, out on the highway or in the twisties, the sport mode is my obvious choice to go for. But then again, beyond speeds of 120 kilometers an hour, the engine starts feeling a little bit strangled. There is a bit of go still remaining in there, but you know that the engine's working too hard. And it also gets quite buzzy. There are quite a few vibrations kicking in, and that is when you feel that the 5-speed gearbox is a sort of a limitation. You want that 6th gear to calm things down and give you a nice cruising speed. That is something that's sorely missed.
Around the winding roads, you will often find yourself happy in the 3rd and 4th gears. It is only around hairpins that you wish that the 2nd gear had a bit more meat. Speaking of the twisties, the 2021 Apache grins widely, because this is where it truly shines. It gets adjustable suspension front and rear.
Yup, adjustable suspension. Of course, you can't play around with the rebound or the compression. If you want to do that, you will have to sort of open it up and play with the internals. But it allows you to set the preload as per your weight, and you don't even need any tools for it. You can simply do it with a coin. Now, if I've counted right, there are about 5 settings of preload. You will have to set both the forks at the same setting, otherwise you're going to have uneven tire wear. Now, setting this up is very simple. Like I said, a coin will do it, but setting up the rear preload is going to take a bit of tools. You'll have to remove the seat, you'll have to remove the panels to access the adjuster.
Though it is not a fully adjustable suspension, it is commendable that TVS has managed to add this range of adjustability at this price point, and it does help in setting the bike up for balanced riding dynamics.
Now, TVS says that their service centers or the showrooms are equipped to help you setting up the suspension to your needs, to your specific weight. But even if they can't do it for you, simply look up online. You will find plenty of guides, plenty of videos to tell you how to set the sag and how to even set the bias for road or track use.
That's not all. The riding modes we spoke of earlier not only alter throttle maps, they also alter the behavior of the anti-lock braking system.
Which means that the ABS is very alert when you're riding in the rain. In the urban mode, it is quite strict for city use, and out on the track, it is quite lenient when you put it in sport mode. Now, that said, we've always had a complaint about the rear ABS being far too intrusive, and that continues even with the 2021 model. But then again, on the track, you're hardly going to be touching the rear brake, and on the city or the urban environment, well, all the safety is always welcome. And speaking of adjustability, you also get adjustable levers for the brake as well as for the clutch. So I think that's a very handy addition.
Speaking of safety, you can also connect the motorcycle to the Smart Connect app, which can record telemetry data on track days, alert emergency contacts about a crash, and even push navigation data to the screen. Speaking of which, touring comfort isn't the best. The seats are large but pretty stiff in favor of sport riding, and by the end of a 300-kilometer journey, I was feeling fatigued. It isn't a tourer after all, so I won't hold it against the Apache. The comfort is comparable to most of the street bikes in the class.
Now, whether you're riding in the city, on the twisty roads, on the track, the ergonomics are actually quite good. The pillion seat is also quite good. I like the overall rider geometry that you get on this. The only thing that I would change is not a part of the ergonomics, but it's the side stand. It is far too short for my liking. In fact, sometimes the bike almost wants to fall over. That length I would want longer.
Here's a quick look at the performance parameters of the new Apache 200.
All this comes together quite nicely. The bike feels planted at highway speeds, and around winding roads like these, it feels nice and sharp, just the way you expect a TVS RTR to be. Now that said, the power may not be overwhelming, but the sharp handling characteristics or the light front end of this motorcycle can get a little intimidating for new riders. But once you get used to it, this motorcycle is easily the most rewarding motorcycle in this particular segment. And if I was buying one, I would certainly get it in this blue.